Hey, so tonight we're going to talk about what it's really like to be trapped inside North Korea's most brutal political prison camp. And I mean really trapped, not the Hollywood version with dramatic escapes, not the news reports that skim the surface, but the actual moment-by-moment reality of existing inside Camp 14, where some prisoners have never seen the outside world, where children are born into concrete cells and die without ever tasting freedom, where a single wrong word can get you tortured, and speaking your mind can get you publicly executed in front of everyone you know. If you think you've had a bad day, if you think your life is hard, if you think you understand what real suffering looks like, you're about to discover you know absolutely nothing. This isn't going to be fast, or easy, or comfortable to listen to. This is going to be slow, methodical, deeply disturbing. You're going to sink into this world piece by piece until you understand exactly how good your life really is. If you're new here, fair warning, this gets dark, really dark. And if you've been here before, you know what's coming. Find that comfortable spot. Let your body sink into whatever you're lying on. Close your eyes and prepare to be grateful for literally everything you have. We're stepping into Kaechon Political Prison Camp in 1995. You are prisoner 4,847. You don't remember your real name anymore. That was beaten out of you 3 years ago. You wake up on a concrete floor so cold it burns your skin. The cell is 7 feet by 4 feet. You share it with 2 other prisoners. There's no bed, no blanket, no pillow, just concrete walls, a concrete floor, and a metal bucket in the corner that serves as your toilet. The bucket hasn't been emptied in 4 days. The smell hits you before you're fully awake. Human waste, rotting food, unwashed bodies, and something else. Something metallic and sour that you've learned is the smell of infection and slow death. Your cellmate to your left isn't moving. His chest isn't rising and falling anymore. He died sometime during the night, quietly, without waking anyone. This is the 3rd cellmate you've lost this year. You don't feel sad about it. You can't afford to feel sad. Instead, you feel something much worse, relief. Relief because now there's more space. Relief because his daily ration of corn kernels will be distributed between you and the other survivor. Relief because you won't have to listen to his coughing fits anymore. The wet, choking sounds that kept you awake. The guard's whistle pierces through the concrete walls. 4:30 a.m. Time to begin another day of survival. You push yourself up from the floor, and every joint in your body screams in protest. Your hip bones jut out so sharply they cut into the concrete when you sleep. Your ribs are clearly visible under your gray prison uniform. Your uniform is the same one you were given 3 years ago. It's never been washed. The fabric has stiffened with sweat, dirt, blood, and things you don't want to think about. It hangs loose on your skeletal frame like a gray ghost of the person you used to be. You weigh maybe 90 pounds now. You used to weigh 140. The cell door clangs open, and guard Kim appears. He's holding his baton, a thick wooden club with metal studs. Everyone calls him the Smiling Death because he grins while he beats prisoners. He looks at your dead cellmate and shrugs. Drag him out, he says to you and the other prisoner. You grab the dead man's feet. They're ice cold and stiff. His skin has turned a grayish-blue color. You and your remaining cellmate drag the body out of the cell and down the concrete corridor. Other prisoners watch from their cells as you pass. Nobody speaks. Speaking without permission means 3 days in the punishment cell. The punishment cell is 2 feet wide and 4 feet tall. You can't stand up. You can't lie down. You can only crouch in total darkness while the cold seeps into your bones. Most people come out of the punishment cell broken in ways that never heal. You drag the body to the collection area, a concrete courtyard where dead prisoners are stacked like firewood. There are already 6 bodies there from yesterday. The bodies will be burned later, in a furnace that also serves to heat the guards' quarters. Nothing is wasted here. Even death serves the state. You walk back to your cell, and your stomach makes a sound like tearing paper. You haven't eaten in 36 hours. Your last meal was a handful of corn kernels mixed with sawdust, and what the guards called protein, which was actually ground up rats. You're so hungry that your body has started consuming itself. Your hair has turned brittle and gray. Your teeth are loose in your gums. Your gums bleed when you try to chew anything harder than mush. But you're still alive, still breathing, still hoping that today might bring food. The whistle blows again. Formation time. You line up in the courtyard with 400 other prisoners. Some of them can barely stand. There's a woman near the front whose leg was crushed in a mining accident 2 weeks ago. The bone is sticking out through her skin, and the wound has turned green with infection. She's still required to stand for formation. She's still required to work 12 hours in the mine. She'll be dead within a week. But until then, she's expected to contribute to the glory of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Guard Captain Park steps onto the platform. He's well-fed, with round cheeks and a clean uniform. He smells like soap and tobacco. He begins the morning speech, the same speech you've heard every day for 3 years. You are here because you have committed crimes against the state. He announces, you are enemies of the people. You are lower than animals. Your only hope of redemption is through labor and re-education. You recite along with the responses, the ritual phrases that keep you alive. We are grateful for the opportunity to serve the state. We will work harder to earn forgiveness. We pledge our loyalty to the supreme leader. The words taste like ashes in your mouth, but saying them correctly means you might get your corn ration today. Failing to say them with sufficient enthusiasm means punishment. The formation ends, and your march to the mine entrance. The mine is a hole in the earth that descends into complete darkness. The air inside is thick with cold dust that coats your lungs and makes every breath a struggle. There's no safety equipment, no hard hats, no breathing masks, no safety ropes. Just prisoners with pickaxes and shovels, digging coal in tunnels that collapse regularly. You're assigned to Tunnel 7 today. Tunnel 7 collapsed last month, killing 12 prisoners. The bodies were never recovered. You just dig around them now. Sometimes your pickaxe hits something soft, and you know you've found one of the buried men. You work for 12 hours straight. No breaks, no water, no food. Just the rhythmic sound of pickaxes hitting stone, the wheeze of prisoners struggling to breathe through cold dust, and the occasional scream when someone gets hurt. Around hour 8, the prisoner working next to you collapses. His name is Jong-ho, and he's been here longer than anyone can remember. He's maybe 50 years old, but he looks 70. His back gives out, and he falls face first into the coal pile. He's conscious, but he can't stand up. Something in his spine has snapped. Guard Kim appears immediately, like he was waiting for this to happen. He looks down at Jong-ho with that trademark smile. Stand up, he orders. Jong-ho tries. He really tries. He gets his hands under him and pushes, but his legs won't respond. I can't. Jong-ho whispers. Something is broken. Guard Kim raises his baton. Weakness is a choice, he says. The first blow lands across Jong-ho's shoulders. Jong-ho screams. The second blow hits his head. You hear the sound of skull cracking against wood. Jong-ho stops moving. Back to work. Guard Kim announces to the rest of you. You pick up your pickaxe and keep digging. You don't look at Jong-ho's body. You can't afford to. Looking might be interpreted as sympathy for an enemy of the state. Sympathy is punishable by death. Hour 12 finally arrives. The whistle blows, and you drag yourself out of the mine. Your hands are bleeding from gripping the pickaxe. Your back feels like it's been lit on fire. Your lungs are full of cold dust, and every breath sounds like sandpaper. But you made it through another day. That's a victory in here. You line up for evening rations. Today's ration is distributed by Guard Lieutenant Choi. He's younger than the other guards, maybe 25. He still has some conscience left, which makes him dangerous in a different way. Sometimes he shows mercy. Sometimes mercy gets you killed. The ration today is 2 handfuls of corn kernels mixed with sawdust. The corn is moldy and green. Some of the kernels have maggots in them. You eat the maggots too. Protein is protein. You also get a cup of watery soup that might have had a vegetable in it once. The soup is lukewarm and tastes like dirty dishwater. But it's liquid, and liquid helps the corn go down. You eat slowly, trying to make it last. Eating quickly means your stomach cramps, and stomach cramps can double you over in pain. Looking weak during eating time can get your rations reduced. While you eat, you listen to the evening announcements. Today's announcement is special. There's going to be a public execution tomorrow. Prisoner 2847 tried to escape 3 days ago. She made it almost 2 miles before the dogs caught her. She's been in the punishment cell since then, and tomorrow she'll be shot in front of the entire camp. Everyone is required to attend. Everyone is required to watch. Anyone who looks away will be punished. Anyone who shows emotion will be punished. You knew prisoner 2847. Her name was Myung-hee. She was imprisoned because her brother defected to South Korea. In North Korea, if someone in your family commits a crime, you're guilty too. 3 generations of guilt. Her grandmother, her parents, her children, all imprisoned for one person's decision to seek freedom. Myung-hee had been here for 8 years. 8 years of this daily routine. 8 years of watching people die. 8 years of corn kernels and coal dust and concrete floors. She finally couldn't take it anymore. Tomorrow, she'll die for trying to be free. You finish your ration and return to your cell. Your new cellmate is a man who arrived yesterday. His crime was listening to South Korean radio broadcasts. He still has hope in his eyes. He still thinks this might be temporary. He still believes he might see his family again. You want to tell him the truth, that hope is dangerous here, that believing in tomorrow will drive you insane. But you don't speak. Speaking creates bonds. Bonds create pain when the other person dies. And everyone dies here eventually. Instead, you lie down on the concrete floor and close your eyes. Your body aches in ways you didn't know were possible. Your hip bones press into the concrete. Your spine feels like a rod of fire. Your stomach churns around the handful of moldy corn. But you're alive, still breathing, still surviving. Outside your cell, you can hear the sounds of the camp at night. Someone crying, very quietly. Someone else coughing up blood. The guards playing cards and laughing. The distant sound of dogs barking in the perimeter. Those dogs are trained to kill. They've tasted human flesh, and they like it. If you ever tried to escape, those dogs would hunt you down and tear you apart while you're still alive. The guards would watch and laugh. Then they'd leave your body where other prisoners could see it. A reminder, a warning. You drift into the shallow, restless sleep that's all your body can manage on concrete. In your dreams, you remember what food used to taste like. Real food. Rice that wasn't mixed with sawdust. Meat that wasn't ground up rats. Vegetables that were green and fresh. In your dreams, you remember what it felt like to be warm, to sleep in a bed with blankets, to wake up without pain, to speak freely without fear. In your dreams, you remember being human, but then you wake up and you're still here, still prisoner 4847, still trapped in this concrete hell, still fighting to survive another day. The whistle blows. 4:30 a.m. Time to do it all again. You push yourself up from the concrete floor once again, your muscles screaming with the familiar agony of another sleepless night. The dead cellmate from yesterday has been replaced with someone new, a teenage boy who can't be more than 16. His eyes are swollen shut from crying, and you can see fresh bruises covering his arms and neck. His crime was probably something insignificant. Maybe he complained about food shortages. Maybe he forgot to bow deeply enough to a party official. Maybe someone simply needed to fill a quota of prisoners. In North Korea, the reasons don't matter. Only the result matters. And the result is always the same. Concrete floors, starvation, and slow death. The morning routine begins exactly as it did yesterday, and the day before, and every day for the past 3 years. Guard Kim appears at your cell door with that same twisted smile, his baton already in his hand, ready to deliver pain to anyone who moves too slowly or looks at him the wrong way. You've learned to keep your eyes focused on the ground. Making eye contact with guards is considered an act of defiance. The teenage boy struggles to stand, his legs shaking from fear and malnutrition. Guard Kim notices the trembling and his smile grows wider. "New meat," he says with satisfaction. "Let's see how long this one lasts." The average survival time in this camp is 4 years, but that's for adults. Children rarely make it past their first winter. You help the boy to his feet without speaking. Touching another prisoner without permission is forbidden, but sometimes the guards allow small acts of assistance, especially when it means prisoners can work more efficiently. The boy's skin feels like paper under your fingers, thin and fragile, ready to tear at the slightest pressure. You can feel every bone in his arm. There's no muscle left, no fat, just skin stretched over a skeleton. The formation in the courtyard is larger today, nearly 500 prisoners standing in perfect rows, waiting for the daily humiliation ritual. Captain Park takes his position on the platform, but today he's not alone. Beside him stands a woman in a crisp military uniform, her chest covered with medals and ribbons. She's someone important, someone from Pyongyang, someone who's come to observe the camp's efficiency. The woman surveys the assembled prisoners with cold calculation, her eyes moving across the rows like she's counting livestock, taking inventory of human resources. She makes notes on a clipboard, occasionally pointing at specific prisoners and whispering to Captain Park. You wonder if she's selecting people for special punishment or perhaps for transfer to an even worse facility. The morning speech is longer today, more elaborate. Captain Park wants to impress his visitor. These enemies of the state have been given the generous opportunity to redeem themselves through honest labor, he announces, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. The great leader in his infinite wisdom allows even the lowest criminals to contribute to the glory of our nation. The woman nods approvingly, making more notes on her clipboard. You recite the required responses with the rest of the prisoners, but you notice that some people are stumbling over the words, their voices weak and hoarse from malnutrition and coal dust. The woman notices too, and she points them out to Captain Park. Those prisoners won't be getting rations today. After formation, you're marched toward the mine entrance. But today there's a detour. The entire group is directed to the camp's central square, where a wooden platform has been erected overnight. On the platform stands a single wooden post, with rope restraints attached at shoulder height. This is where yesterday's announcement becomes reality. This is where prisoner 2847 will die. Myung-hee is brought out by 4 guards, her hands bound behind her back, her feet barely able to carry her weight. 3 days in the punishment cell have left her broken and hollow. Her hair has fallen out in patches. Her skin is gray and sunken. Her eyes are vacant and staring. She looks like she's already dead, like her body just hasn't realized it yet. The prisoners are arranged in a perfect square around the platform. Everyone must have a clear view. Everyone must witness what happens to those who try to escape. The teenage boy beside you starts to shake even more violently, his breathing becoming rapid and shallow. You want to warn him to control himself, but speaking during an execution means joining the person on the platform. Captain Park reads the charges. Prisoner 2847 has committed the crime of attempted escape from lawful detention. This crime represents a rejection of the state's generous offer of redemption through labor. It demonstrates ingratitude toward the great leader's mercy. The punishment for this crime is death by firing squad. Myung-hee is tied to the wooden post, her head hanging forward, her body completely limp. She doesn't struggle, doesn't protest, doesn't even seem aware of what's happening. The punishment cell has already destroyed everything that made her human. This execution is just a formality, a show for the other prisoners. 6 guards line up 20 feet from the platform, their rifles loaded and ready. The woman from Pyongyang watches with professional interest, occasionally glancing at the assembled prisoners to gauge their reactions. Anyone who shows too much emotion will be noted. Anyone who shows too little will also be noted. There's no safe way to respond, no correct expression to wear. Captain Park raises his hand. Ready. The guards raise their rifles. Aim at Myung-hee's chest. Fire. 6 shots ring out simultaneously, echoing off the concrete buildings. Myung-hee's body jerks once, then hangs motionless against the rope restraints. Blood spreads across her gray prison uniform, dark red against the faded fabric. The teenage boy beside you collapses, falling to his knees and vomiting what little food he has in his stomach. The sound of his retching is loud in the sudden silence. Every eye turns toward him, including the woman from Pyongyang. Her pen moves across her clipboard, marking him for future attention. He's just signed his own death warrant. 2 guards drag the boy away, his feet leaving trails in the dirt. He's probably going to the punishment cell, the same cell that broke Myung. It's the same cell that will break him. You'll never see him again. Or if you do, he'll be a hollow shell like Myung was, empty of everything that once made him human. The rest of the prisoners are marched to their work assignments. But the mood is different now. Heavier, more desperate. Witnessing an execution always has this effect. It reminds everyone that death is the only way out of this place. That no matter how hard you work, no matter how obedient you are, this is how your story ends. Tied to a wooden post, shot full of holes, burned in a furnace. You're assigned to Tunnel 12 today, a newer excavation that's even more dangerous than Tunnel 7. The ceiling is unstable, the air is thick with poisonous gases, and the coal seam is so narrow that you have to crawl on your hands and knees to reach it. Your back screams in protest as you drag yourself through the cramped space, your knees bleeding through your thin prison uniform. The work is even harder than usual today, partly because you're weakened by hunger, partly because your mind keeps replaying Myung-hee's execution, the sound of the rifles, the way her body jerked and went still, the knowledge that this is your future too, that every day you survive just brings you closer to that wooden platform. Around noon, there's a cave-in in one of the adjacent tunnels. You hear the rumbling, feel the ground shake, then the screaming starts. High-pitched, desperate, terrified screaming that echoes through the underground chambers. The screaming goes on for about 10 minutes, then gradually fades to nothing. 5 prisoners are buried under tons of rock and coal, crushed instantly, or maybe slowly, suffocating in the darkness. The guards don't attempt a rescue, don't even send anyone to investigate. They just mark those prisoners as production casualties in their logbooks and assign the rest of you to work around the collapsed area. The bodies will never be recovered. They'll just become part of the mine, part of the coal that future prisoners will dig up and load into carts. Your hands are shaking as you swing your pickaxe, partly from exhaustion, partly from the knowledge that the ceiling above your head could collapse at any moment, burying you alive just like those 5 prisoners. Every crack in the rock, every small shower of dust makes your heart race with terror, but you keep working because stopping means beatings, and beatings in your weakened condition might mean death. The 12-hour shift finally ends, and you crawl out of the tunnel covered in coal dust and blood. Your lungs feel like they're full of broken glass, every breath sending sharp pains through your chest. You've developed the same wet cough that killed your previous cellmate, the cough that means your lungs are slowly filling with fluid and coal particles. The evening ration line is shorter today. Several prisoners didn't make it back from the mines, either killed in accidents or collapsed from exhaustion. Their absence means slightly larger portions for the survivors, a grim mathematics of starvation, where death becomes a twisted form of generosity, providing a few extra corn kernels for those still breathing. Your ration today includes something special, a piece of what might once have been meat. It's gray and slimy and smells like decay, but it's protein, and protein might keep you alive for another few days. You chew it slowly. Try not to think about what kind of animal it came from, or whether it was actually an animal at all. As you eat, you overhear 2 guards talking about quotas. The woman from Pyongyang has determined that the camp is underperforming. Too many prisoners are dying before they can complete their full sentences. This is seen as a waste of state resources. So changes are coming: stricter discipline, longer work hours, reduced rations. The goal is to extract more labor from each prisoner before they die. After the meal, you return to your cell to find that the teenage boy never came back. His space on the concrete floor is empty. His few possessions, a torn photograph and a small piece of string, have been removed. It's like he never existed, like he was never born, never had a family, never had dreams, never mattered to anyone. You lie down on the cold concrete and close your eyes, but sleep doesn't come easily. Your mind keeps replaying the day's horrors. Myung-hee's execution, the cave-in, the screaming, the knowledge that tomorrow will bring more of the same, more death, more suffering, more reminders that you're trapped in a place designed to destroy human beings. Outside your cell, the night sounds are different. There's less crying, less coughing, fewer prisoners left alive to make noise. The camp is slowly emptying itself, consuming its own population, like a machine that feeds on human suffering. The guards don't care. There are always more prisoners coming, fresh supplies of people who committed crimes against the state. You finally drift into exhausted sleep, and your dreams are filled with images of food, real food, warm meals with actual flavor, rice that isn't mixed with sawdust, vegetables that aren't rotten, meat that doesn't smell like death. In your dreams, you remember what it felt like to be full, to eat until you were satisfied, to have energy left over after eating. But even in your dreams, the reality creeps in, the knowledge that this is fantasy, that you'll never taste real food again, never feel truly warm again, never be free again. The dreams turn dark, filled with concrete walls and cold dust and the sound of rifle shots, and you wake up gasping, your heart pounding, sweat covering your skeletal body despite the cold. The whistle blows. For 30 a.m., another day in hell begins. You push yourself up from the concrete floor, feeling the familiar agony in every joint, every muscle, every bone. Your body is failing, piece by piece, day by day, but you're still alive, still conscious, still trapped in this nightmare that has no end. You stand in formation with 397 prisoners now, 3 fewer than yesterday. The mathematics of death are simple here. Subtract the bodies, add the suffering, multiply by hopelessness. The result is always the same: a camp full of walking corpses waiting for their turn to stop walking. The woman from Pyongyang is back, standing beside Captain Park with her clipboard and cold eyes. She's been here for 3 days now, observing, calculating, determining how to squeeze more productivity from dying prisoners. Her presence has made the guards more brutal, more eager to demonstrate their loyalty to the state, more eager to prove they can break human beings efficiently. Today's morning speech includes new regulations. Effective immediately, work quotas will be increased by 30%. Captain Park announces, his voice echoing off the concrete walls. Rest periods will be eliminated. Medical exemptions will no longer be recognized. Any prisoner who fails to meet their quota will forfeit their evening ration. The assembled prisoners absorb this information in silence, but you can feel the collective despair spreading through the formation like a disease. 30% more work means death for anyone already operating at their physical limits, which is everyone. No one here has energy reserves. No one has strength to spare. The new quotas aren't just demanding, they're lethal. A prisoner 2 rows ahead of you, an elderly man whose name you never learned, begins to sway on his feet. His body can't handle standing at attention for this long. His legs buckle, and he crashes to the ground, convulsing, foam bubbling from his mouth. His eyes roll back in his head, showing only white. The guards don't rush to help. They watch with casual interest as the man thrashes in the dirt, his body shutting down from malnutrition and exhaustion. It takes almost 5 minutes for the convulsions to stop. 5 minutes of watching a human being die in agony, while 500 other prisoners stand perfectly still, afraid to move, afraid to help, afraid to show compassion. When the man finally goes still, 2 guards drag his body away, leaving a dark stain in the dirt where he fell. Captain Park continues his speech as if nothing happened. The great leader expects total dedication from those seeking redemption. The woman from Pyongyang makes another note on her clipboard, probably recording the man's death as an example of improved efficiency. After formation, you're assigned to a new work detail, hauling coal carts from the mine entrance to the processing facility. It's back-breaking labor that requires teams of prisoners to pull massive wooden carts loaded with tons of coal. The carts have no wheels, just wooden runners that scrape and catch on every stone, every crack in the ground. Your team consists of 8 prisoners, all skeletal, all exhausted, all operating on the edge of collapse. The cart you're assigned weighs more than all 8 of you combined. Even when empty, when loaded with coal, it becomes an instrument of torture designed to destroy backs and shoulders and knees, to reduce human beings to pack animals. The harnesses are made from rough rope that cuts into your shoulders and chest. The rope hasn't been replaced in years. It's stiff with dried blood and sweat from previous prisoners, some of whom died while wearing these same harnesses. You can see dark stains in the fibers, evidence of the human cost of moving coal from point A to point B. The first load of the day nearly kills you. The cart is so heavy that 8 men can barely budge it. Your feet slip in the mud. Your back feels like it's tearing in half. Your shoulders burn where the rope cuts into your flesh. Behind you, one of your teammates, a man in his 40s with advanced tuberculosis, begins coughing up blood with every step. The blood sprays across the back of your neck, warm and sticky, but you can't stop to wipe it off. Stopping means the cart stops, and if the cart stops, the guards start beating. The tubercular man keeps pulling despite the blood streaming from his mouth, despite the wet rattling in his chest that sounds like drowning. He knows that collapsing means death. By the 3rd trip, 2 members of your team have collapsed. Their bodies simply gave out, unable to continue pulling the impossible weight. The guards respond by reassigning their portions of the load to the remaining 6 prisoners, making each trip even more brutal, even more likely to kill the survivors. It's a death spiral disguised as increased efficiency. The 4th trip breaks the tubercular man. He falls face first into the mud, blood pouring from his mouth and nose, his body convulsing as his lungs fill with fluid. You watch him drown in his own blood, right there in the mud, while the guards order the rest of you to keep pulling, to step over his dying body, to treat him like an obstacle in the road. By evening, your team has been reduced to 4 prisoners. The others are dead, or close enough to dead that they've been dragged away to die elsewhere. The 4 survivors are barely human anymore, reduced to primitive survival instincts, gasping, bleeding, held together by nothing but terror and the animal need to keep breathing. The evening ration is smaller today, punishment for failing to meet the new quotas. Instead of 2 handfuls of corn, you get 1. Instead of watery soup, you get a cup of brownish liquid that might be water, or might be something worse. It tastes like rust and decay, but it's wet, and wetness helps the corn kernels go down. As you choke down your inadequate meal, you notice that the camp population has shrunk dramatically. There are empty spaces everywhere, in the dining area, in the formation courtyard, in the barracks. The increased quotas are working exactly as intended, eliminating prisoners faster, reducing the inefficiency of keeping people alive too long. You return to your cell to find it completely empty. Both of your cellmates from this morning are gone. The concrete floor shows dark stains where they died, or where they bled before being dragged away to die. You're alone now, surrounded by concrete walls and the silence of death. The isolation is almost worse than the hunger. Lying on the cold floor, you try to remember what life was like before this place, but the memories are fading, becoming dreamlike and unreal. You can barely remember faces of people you loved, voices of family members, the taste of food that wasn't mixed with sawdust. It's like your previous life happened to someone else, someone who no longer exists. The sounds outside your cell are quieter tonight. Fewer prisoners left alive to make noise. The guards are celebrating, their voices loud with alcohol and satisfaction. They're proud of the day's efficiency, proud of how many prisoners they've killed through increased productivity. To them, each death represents successful management, effective resource utilization. Sleep comes in fragments, broken by pain and cold and the constant fear that you might not wake up. Your body is shutting down, piece by piece, system by system. Your heart beats irregularly. Your breathing is shallow and labored. Your kidneys have stopped processing waste properly. Death is coming. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. In your fractured dreams, you see Myung-hee again, tied to the wooden post. But this time she's speaking, telling you that death is the only freedom, the only escape from this concrete hell. Her voice is gentle, almost motherly, as she explains that fighting to survive is pointless, that giving up is the rational choice, the merciful choice. You wake up gasping, your heart pounding, sweat covering your skeletal frame. The dream felt so real, so convincing. For a moment, you actually considered letting go, allowing your body to stop fighting, to join the growing pile of corpses that gets burned every morning. But something deep inside, some primitive survival instinct, forces you to keep breathing. The whistle blows for 30 a.m., but this time, you can barely move. Your muscles have seized up during the night, cramped from dehydration and malnutrition. It takes enormous effort just to lift your head, to push yourself up from the concrete. Your body is screaming at you to stay down, to give up, to let death come quietly. But you stand, because standing is what prisoners do, because lying down means joining the pile of bodies, because some animal part of your brain still believes that surviving another day matters, even though logic says it doesn't, even though every day brings more suffering, more degradation, more proof that death would be a mercy. You shuffle toward the cell door, your legs barely supporting your weight, your vision blurry from weakness. Today will be worse than yesterday. The quotas will be higher, the rations smaller, the guards more brutal. But you'll face it, because you're still breathing, still conscious, still trapped in this nightmare that has no end and no purpose except to demonstrate that human beings can be broken, reduced to nothing, destroyed while still technically alive. The formation courtyard seems vast now, with so few prisoners left to fill it. You stand in a group of maybe 200 people, all that remains of the 500 who were here just a week ago. The woman from Pyongyang surveys the reduced population with satisfaction. Her efficiency measures are working. The camp is processing prisoners faster, extracting maximum labor before disposal. Captain Park announces today's new regulation. Prisoners who cannot maintain the work pace will be transferred to special processing. No one asks what special processing means. Everyone knows. It's the euphemism for immediate execution. No more slow death from starvation and exhaustion. Just a bullet to the head and cremation within the hour. Efficiency. The march to the work site feels like a death march, because that's exactly what it is. Most of the prisoners around you won't survive today's quotas. Their bodies are too damaged, too depleted, too close to complete system failure. But they keep walking, because stopping means special processing, and everyone hopes to live just one more day. You're assigned to the coal carts again, but this time your team consists of only 3 prisoners, expected to pull the same impossible loads that killed most of yesterday's 8-person team. The mathematics are simple and lethal. There's no way 3 people can move loads designed for 8. But the quotas don't care about mathematics or physics or human limitations. The first pull nearly tears your arms from their sockets. The rope cuts so deep into your shoulders that blood immediately begins soaking through your prison uniform. Your teammates, both of them walking skeletons, scream in agony as their bodies tear under the impossible strain. But the cart moves, slowly, grudgingly, leaving a trail of blood in the mud. By the third trip, one of your teammates has collapsed completely, his body twisted in an unnatural position, his breathing so shallow it's barely detectable. The guards drag him away for special processing. You and the remaining prisoner are expected to continue to pull loads meant for 3 people with only 2, to exceed the already impossible quotas. The remaining prisoner, a woman whose name you never learned, looks at you with eyes that have already accepted death. She's given up, not just on survival, but on the pretense of trying. She's going through the motions while waiting for her body to stop. Her face shows the peaceful resignation of someone who has moved beyond suffering into something like relief. The 4th trip kills her. She doesn't collapse dramatically, doesn't scream or convulse. She simply stops breathing while still in the harness, her body held upright by the rope, her dead weight making the cart even heavier. You pull her corpse for almost 100 yards before the guards notice and remove her body for processing. Now you're alone. One person expected to pull loads designed for 8. Expected to meet quotas that were impossible even with a full team. The guards watch with clinical interest, like scientists observing a laboratory experiment. How long can one human being survive impossible conditions? How much can a body endure before it finally breaks completely? You manage 2 more trips, moving the cart a few yards at a time, resting every few steps, your body operating on pure adrenaline and terror. Blood streams from your shoulders and back, where the rope has cut through skin and muscle. Your vision is tunneling, going black around the edges. Your heart feels like it's going to explode in your chest. On the final trip, your body simply stops responding. Your legs give out, your arms go numb. Your heart rhythm becomes irregular and weak. You collapse beside the cart, face first in the mud, blood from your mouth mixing with the dirt. Your breathing becomes shallow and labored. Death is finally coming, and it feels like mercy. The guards approach, but instead of dragging you away for special processing, they kick you in the ribs, ordering you to get up, to continue working. But your body can't respond, can't obey. The connection between your brain and your muscles has been severed by exhaustion and trauma. You're still conscious, still aware, but completely paralyzed. One of the guards raises his rifle, pointing it at your head. This is it. This is how your story ends. Face down in the mud, shot like a diseased animal, burned in a furnace, forgotten completely. Your name will disappear. Your existence will be erased, like you never lived at all. But the shot doesn't come. Instead, the woman from Pyongyang approaches, studies you with those cold, calculating eyes, makes a note on her clipboard. Interesting, she says. This one has exceeded all projected survival parameters. Transfer him to the medical facility. I want to study how he lasted this long. The medical facility is not a place of healing. It's a concrete building filled with metal tables and surgical instruments that haven't been sterilized in years. The smell hits you as soon as the guards carry you through the door. Antiseptic mixed with decay, blood mixed with chemicals, the sour stench of human experimentation disguised as medical research. You're strapped to a metal table that's stained with fluids you don't want to identify. The leather restraints cut into your wrists and ankles, but you're too weak to struggle, too depleted to fight. Your body lies motionless while your mind screams in terror, understanding that whatever happens here will be worse than death. Dr. Chung enters the room, a thin man in a blood-stained white coat, his eyes magnified behind thick glasses. He looks at you like you're a specimen, a laboratory rat, something to be dissected and studied. His hands are steady as he arranges his instruments, scalpels and saws, and devices whose purpose you can't imagine. Fascinating, he murmurs, examining your skeletal frame. Most subjects expire within 18 months. You've survived 37 months under conditions designed to kill within 12. The woman from Pyongyang wants to understand your anomalous resilience. What makes you different? What keeps you alive when others die? He begins with blood samples, sliding thick needles into your arms and drawing out dark red liquid that barely fills the vials. Your blood has become thin and watery, lacking the nutrients needed to sustain life. Yet somehow your heart keeps beating, your lungs keep working, your brain keeps processing information. Remarkable, Dr. Chong notes, examining the blood under a microscope. Your red blood cell count is impossibly low. Your protein levels are negligible. By all medical standards, you should have died months ago. Yet here you are, conscious, responsive, clinging to life with supernatural tenacity. The next test involves removing small pieces of muscle tissue from your arms and legs. The scalpel cuts through skin that's become transparent with malnutrition, revealing muscle fibers that look more like string than human tissue. Each cut sends waves of agony through your nervous system, but you can't even scream. Your vocal cords too damaged from coal dust to produce sound. Dr. Chong studies the tissue samples with scientific fascination. Your muscle mass has been reduced by approximately 80%. He observes, your body has cannibalized itself to survive, consuming muscle protein to fuel essential organs. You're essentially a living skeleton, held together by willpower and terror. The experiments continue for hours, each one more invasive than the last. Dr. Chong removes samples of bone marrow, liver tissue, lung tissue, treating your body like a research project, documenting how starvation and brutality affect human physiology. You're conscious for all of it, feeling every cut, every extraction, every violation of your dying flesh. Your survival instinct is remarkably strong. Dr. Chong notes in his journal, even in this advanced state of physical deterioration, your body continues fighting for life. Your adrenal glands are producing stress hormones at levels that should be fatal, yet somehow they're keeping you functional. Between experiments, you're left alone in the medical facility, surrounded by the evidence of previous research subjects. Jars containing organs floating in formaldehyde, skeletal remains arranged on examination tables, photographs documenting the progression of starvation and disease. This is where prisoners come to be studied, not healed. Other prisoners are brought in while you're there, subjects for different experiments. You watch through blurred vision as Dr. Chong tests the effects of various chemicals on living human tissue, injects diseases into healthy prisoners to study infection rates, performs surgeries without anesthesia to observe pain responses. The screaming is constant, a soundtrack of scientific inquiry. One experiment involves testing how long prisoners can survive without water. The subject, a middle-aged woman, is strapped to a table just like yours, but she's healthy, recently captured, still possessing the flesh and strength you lost long ago. Dr. Chong wants to document the complete process of dehydration, from beginning to end. You watch her die over the course of 5 days, her body slowly desiccating, her skin becoming tight and papery, her eyes sinking deep into their sockets, her tongue swelling until she can't close her mouth. On the final day, she begs for death, pleading in a voice like sandpaper. But Dr. Chong continues his observations, documenting every stage of her suffering. Another experiment tests the limits of human endurance under extreme cold. A young man is placed in a freezer unit, his body temperature gradually lowered while Dr. Chong monitors his vital signs. You listen to his teeth chattering, his pleas for warmth, his final gasps as hypothermia shuts down his organs, all recorded meticulously in Dr. Chang's research notes. Your own experiments resume after a brief rest period. Dr. Chong wants to test your pain tolerance, your neurological responses, your psychological breaking point. He uses electrical shocks, chemical burns, surgical procedures without painkillers. Each test designed to push you beyond the limits of human endurance, to find the point where your miraculous survival instinct finally fails. But you don't break. Your mind retreats to some deep place where the pain can't follow, where consciousness becomes a flickering candle in an ocean of darkness. You exist in a state between life and death, awareness and oblivion, suffering and numbness. Dr. Chong is fascinated by your ability to endure, to survive treatments that kill other subjects. Extraordinary, he writes. Subject 4847 demonstrates unprecedented resilience to physical and psychological trauma. Pain responses remain intact, but subject appears capable of dissociating consciousness from bodily sensations. This may explain survival duration far exceeding normal parameters. The woman from Pyongyang visits regularly to observe your progress, standing beside Dr. Chong as he documents your deterioration. She's particularly interested in the psychological aspects, the mental mechanisms that allow you to continue functioning despite impossible circumstances. Her questions focus on breaking points, on methods of destroying the human spirit more efficiently. Can you replicate this resilience in other subjects? She asks Dr. Chong. Or is this an anomaly, a genetic aberration, something that can't be reproduced? Her voice is clinical, detached, discussing your suffering like it's an engineering problem to be solved, a process to be optimized. Dr. Chong explains his theories about survival psychology, about the role of trauma in strengthening certain mental pathways, about how extreme suffering can sometimes produce extraordinary endurance. You listen to them discuss your mind like it's a machine, a biological computer running programs they want to understand and control. The experiments become more extreme as Dr. Chong seeks to find your breaking point. He removes larger tissue samples, inflicts more severe injuries, subjects you to psychological tortures designed to shatter sanity. But somehow, impossibly, you endure, your consciousness retreating deeper into itself, finding places of safety that exist beyond physical reality. Days blur together in the medical facility, a continuous cycle of pain and observation, torture disguised as research. You lose track of time, of your own identity, of the distinction between sleeping and waking, dreaming and hallucinating, living and dying. You exist in a state of suspended animation, neither fully alive nor completely dead. Other prisoners come and go, most lasting only hours or days before expiring under Dr. Chang's care. Their bodies lack your mysterious resilience, your supernatural ability to survive the unsurvivable. You watch them die while you continue breathing, continue consciousness, continue existing in this space between worlds. The woman from Pyongyang becomes increasingly frustrated with Dr. Chang's inability to explain your survival. She wants concrete answers, practical applications, methods for extending prisoner productivity. But your endurance seems to defy scientific explanation, rooted in something deeper than biology, something that can't be measured or replicated. Perhaps, Dr. Chong suggests, the subject's survival isn't physiological, but psychological. Perhaps extreme trauma has created a dissociative state that protects consciousness from physical reality. The mind has essentially separated from the body, allowing both to continue functioning despite impossible damage. This theory leads to new experiments, tests designed to probe the connection between your mind and body. Dr. Chong uses drugs that should destroy consciousness, procedures that should cause immediate psychological collapse, methods that have never failed to break other subjects. But you remain aware, present, stubbornly clinging to some core of identity that refuses to dissolve. Remarkable, Dr. Chong notes. Subject maintains coherent consciousness despite neurological damage that should produce complete mental breakdown. Brain scans show extensive trauma, but cognitive function persists. It's as if the mind has learned to operate independently of normal neurological pathways. The experiments continue, each one more invasive, more desperate. Dr. Chong is running out of theories, out of explanations for your impossible survival. The woman from Pyongyang grows impatient, threatening to terminate the research and simply execute you, to end the anomaly that defies their understanding of human limitations. But you survive, day after day, test after test, pushing the boundaries of what medical science considers possible. Your body continues its slow dissolution, but your consciousness persists, observing, remembering, bearing witness to horrors that should destroy any rational mind. Yet somehow, impossibly, you remain you. In the brief moments between experiments, when Dr. Chong steps away to record his observations, you retreat into memories of the world outside, fragments of life before the camp, before the concrete and the cold dust and the endless hunger. These memories become more real than physical sensation, more substantial than the metal table and leather restraints. You remember sunlight, real sunlight warming your face, not filtered through dirty windows or reflected off concrete walls. You remember the taste of fresh water, clear and cold from mountain streams, not the rust-flavored liquid they give you here. You remember the sound of laughter, genuine human joy, not the twisted satisfaction of guards watching prisoners suffer. These memories sustain you, providing refuge when the pain becomes unbearable, when Dr. Chang's instruments cut too deep, when the woman from Pyongyang's questions probe too close to the core of who you are. You retreat into the past, into a version of yourself that was fully human, fully alive, fully free. But even memories begin to fade under the relentless assault of experimentation. The boundaries between past and present blur, between dreams and hallucinations, between hope and despair. You begin to lose yourself, piece by piece, thought by thought, until only the most essential core remains, the irreducible spark that insists on continuing, on surviving, on bearing witness. Dr. Chong notices the change, documents the gradual dissolution of your personality, the slow erosion of everything that made you an individual. Subject is entering final phase of psychological decomposition. He notes, identity markers are breaking down, but core consciousness persists. This may represent the absolute minimum required for human awareness. The woman from Pyongyang makes a decision that changes everything. She's grown tired of Dr. Chang's inability to replicate your resilience, tired of experiments that produce data but no practical applications. Terminate the research. She orders. This subject has provided all useful information. Dispose of him and focus resources on more productive studies. But Dr. Chong hesitates, his scientific curiosity overriding orders. With respect, this subject represents a unique opportunity. He argues, his survival parameters are unprecedented. We may never encounter another case like this. Terminating now would waste invaluable research potential. The woman's eyes narrow with cold calculation. You have 48 hours to produce actionable results. She states, concrete methods for extending prisoner productivity. If you cannot deliver practical applications, the subject will be processed immediately. No further extensions. No appeals. Dr. Chong works frantically over the next 2 days, pushing his experiments to even more extreme levels, desperate to unlock the secret of your impossible endurance. He subjects you to temperatures that should stop your heart, chemicals that should destroy your nervous system, procedures that should cause immediate death. But you persist, your body operating on principles that seem to transcend normal biology. Your heart continues beating despite massive trauma. Your brain maintains consciousness despite neurological damage that should produce instant coma. You exist in a state that defies medical understanding, a living contradiction to everything science knows about human limitations. On the final day, with execution scheduled for evening, Dr. Chong makes a desperate attempt to understand your survival mechanism. He injects you with the experimental drug designed to enhance neurological sensitivity, to amplify every sensation, every pain signal, every trauma response. The theory is that extreme amplification might reveal the source of your resilience. The drug takes effect immediately, and the world explodes into sensation. Every nerve ending becomes a source of agony. Every touch feels like fire. Every breath feels like swallowing broken glass. The pain is so intense it transcends physical experience, becoming something pure and absolute, beyond human comprehension. But instead of breaking you, the amplified suffering produces an unexpected result. Your consciousness doesn't retreat, it expands, spreading beyond the boundaries of your physical body. You become aware of things that shouldn't be possible. The thoughts of other prisoners, the emotions of the guards, the complex web of suffering that permeates the entire camp. Extraordinary, Dr. Chong whispers, monitoring your brain activity on primitive electroencephalograph equipment. Neural activity is off all charts. Subject appears to be experiencing heightened awareness rather than sensory overload. This contradicts every prediction, every model of human neurological response. Through your expanded consciousness, you perceive the true scope of the camp's horror, not just the physical brutality, but the psychological architecture designed to destroy human dignity, the systematic methods for reducing people to numbers, to statistics, to disposable resources. You see it all with terrible clarity. You become aware of other prisoners throughout the facility, their individual stories of suffering, their private moments of despair, their small acts of resistance. You feel their pain as if it were your own, their hope as if it were your own, their approaching deaths as if they were your own. The boundaries between self and others dissolve completely. This expanded awareness includes the guards, and what you discover horrifies you more than any physical torture. They're not monsters. They're ordinary people who have been systematically desensitized to suffering, trained to view prisoners as less than human, conditioned to find satisfaction in cruelty. They're victims too, in a different but equally tragic way. You perceive Dr. Chang's internal struggle, his genuine scientific curiosity warring with the knowledge that his research serves evil purposes. He tells himself he's advancing medical knowledge, contributing to scientific understanding, but deep down he knows he's just finding more efficient ways to destroy human beings. The woman from Pyongyang is the most disturbing presence of all. Her consciousness is like a void, completely empty of empathy or compassion. She views suffering as a tool, a resource to be deployed strategically. Her mind operates with mathematical precision, calculating the optimal balance between productivity and disposal, between usefulness and elimination. As the hours pass, your expanded awareness begins to encompass the entire camp. Every prisoner, every guard, every administrator. You become a repository of their collective experience, a living archive of suffering and cruelty, bearing witness to horrors that exceed human capacity for understanding. The drug's effects intensify, and your consciousness expands beyond the camp boundaries, into the surrounding countryside, the nearby cities, the nation itself. You perceive the vast machinery of oppression that created this place, the bureaucratic systems that process human beings like industrial raw materials, the ideology that justifies infinite cruelty in service of abstract political goals. You see the families of disappeared prisoners, waiting for news that will never come, the children who grow up without parents, the elderly who die alone because their children vanished into camps like this one. The suffering radiates outward in concentric circles, affecting millions of people who never set foot inside these concrete walls. Dr. Chong monitors your vital signs with growing amazement. Impossible, he mutters. Brain activity suggests consciousness is operating at levels far beyond normal human parameters. It's as if the subject has transcended individual awareness, accessing some form of collective consciousness. But transcendence comes with a price. The expanded awareness includes not just suffering, but the weight of absolute knowledge. The crushing responsibility of bearing witness to atrocities that must never be forgotten. You become the keeper of stories that would otherwise vanish, the guardian of truths that power wants to erase. The woman from Pyongyang returns as the 48-hour deadline approaches. She reviews Dr. Chang's final reports with growing impatience. These results are scientifically interesting, she admits, but practically useless. Enhanced consciousness doesn't improve labor productivity. Expanded awareness doesn't extend working life. This research has produced no actionable applications. Dr. Chang makes one last desperate argument. The subject has achieved a state of consciousness unknown to medical science. He pleads, this could revolutionize our understanding of human potential, of the relationship between mind and body. We're on the verge of a breakthrough that could change everything. But the woman's decision is final. Terminate the subject immediately. She orders. Dispose of all research materials. Reassign Dr. Chang to standard medical duties. This facility will return to processing prisoners efficiently rather than indulging in academic curiosities. As guards prepare to execute the termination order, your expanded consciousness encompasses one final revelation, the true purpose of your impossible survival. You weren't meant to live for yourself. You were meant to bear witness, to remember, to carry the stories of the disappeared, to ensure that their suffering has meaning beyond the immediate moment. Every prisoner who died in your presence, every act of cruelty you witnessed, every moment of despair you shared, becomes part of a larger testimony, a record that transcends individual mortality. Your consciousness has become a repository of truth that cannot be destroyed, even if your body is eliminated. The guards enter the medical facility with orders to administer lethal injection, but something unprecedented happens. Your expanded awareness suddenly contracts, snapping back into your physical body with explosive force. The returning consciousness brings with it all the accumulated knowledge, all the witnessed suffering, all the unbearable truth about this place and what it represents. The shock of reintegration causes your body to convulse violently. Your heart stops, then restarts, then stops again. Your breathing becomes erratic, then ceases entirely for several minutes, then resumes with desperate gasps. You exist in a state between life and death, your expanded consciousness struggling to fit back into the constraints of individual awareness. Dr. Chang watches in fascination as your vital signs fluctuate wildly. The subject appears to be experiencing some form of neurological crisis. He reports, consciousness is attempting to reintegrate with physical systems, but the process may be incompatible with survival. For several hours, you drift between states of being, sometimes existing as pure awareness without physical form, sometimes trapped in your deteriorating body, sometimes experiencing both simultaneously. The boundaries between individual and universal consciousness remain fluid, unstable, threatening to dissolve entirely. But gradually, impossibly, you stabilize. Your consciousness settles back into your physical form while retaining fragments of the expanded awareness. You remain connected to the suffering around you, but no longer overwhelmed by it. You carry the stories of the dead while remaining anchored in your own identity. The woman from Pyongyang observes this final transformation with calculated interest. Interesting, she notes. The subject has returned to baseline consciousness, but appears fundamentally changed. Brain activity shows patterns unlike anything in previous research. Perhaps this represents a new form of human adaptation to extreme conditions. But her scientific curiosity doesn't override practical considerations. The termination order remains in effect, regardless of your unique neurological state. You've provided all the useful data possible, and continuing to maintain you serves no productive purpose. The decision has been made, and it will be implemented immediately. As the guards prepare the lethal injection, you feel a strange sense of peace settling over your consciousness. Not the peace of giving up, but the peace of completion. You've served your purpose, borne witness to the unbearable, preserved the stories that would otherwise be lost. Your death will not erase what you've experienced, what you've become. The needle enters your arm, but instead of fear, you feel gratitude. Gratitude for having survived long enough to see, to understand, to remember. Gratitude for having been chosen to carry this impossible burden, to serve as a bridge between the living and the dead, between the witnesses and the witnessed. But consciousness doesn't end. Instead, it transforms into something else entirely. You exist now as pure awareness, unbound by physical form, yet intimately connected to every moment of suffering within these concrete walls. You've become what the camp was designed to prevent: a permanent witness, an unbreakable record, a voice that cannot be silenced. Your body lies motionless on the metal table, officially terminated, recorded as Subject 4847, research complete, disposed. But your awareness persists, hovering in the spaces between concrete blocks, flowing through ventilation systems, seeping into every corner where prisoners huddle in darkness. You are everywhere and nowhere, dead yet more alive than ever. Dr. Chong stares at your lifeless form with confusion. His instruments show no brain activity, no heartbeat, no respiratory function. Yet something in the room feels different, charged with an energy he cannot measure or explain. Curious, he mutters. All vital signs have ceased, but electromagnetic readings are highly unusual, almost as if consciousness has achieved independent existence. The woman from Pyongyang dismisses his observations as post-mortem neurological echoes. Dispose of the body immediately, she orders. Sterilize the facility. Begin processing the next batch of research subjects. This anomaly has consumed enough resources. We return to standard operational procedures. But you remain, your consciousness settling into the fabric of the camp itself, becoming part of its structure, its history, its terrible purpose. You exist in the concrete walls that have absorbed decades of screams, in the metal bars that have held thousands of prisoners, in the very air that carries the weight of accumulated suffering. Through this new form of existence, you perceive time differently. Past and present blur together. You witnessed the camp's construction decades ago, the first prisoners dragged through its gates, the gradual refinement of techniques for breaking human beings. You see it all as one continuous moment, an eternal present of institutionalized cruelty. You observe the systematic nature of the horror, how each element is carefully designed to maximize despair while maintaining plausible deniability. The starvation rations calculated to maintain just enough strength for labor. The work quotas set precisely at the edge of human endurance. The psychological techniques crafted to destroy hope without quite crossing into obvious torture. New prisoners arrive constantly, their faces reflecting the same shock and disbelief you once felt. They cannot comprehend that such a place exists, that human beings have created systems specifically designed to destroy other human beings. Their innocence dies within hours, replaced by the grim mathematics of survival. You witness their individual stories, each one unique yet following predictable patterns. The political dissidents who spoke too freely, the religious believers who refused to worship the state, the ordinary citizens whose only crime was being related to someone deemed dangerous, all reduced to numbers, to statistics, to disposable resources. Through your expanded awareness, you perceive conversations between guards and administrators, casual discussions about processing efficiency and resource optimization. They speak of human beings like factory equipment, calculating maintenance costs versus replacement expenses, determining the optimal point of disposal. Guard Captain Park receives new quotas from Pyongyang. Increase throughput by 40%. The orders specify: reduce average detention period from 4 years to 18 months. maximize labor extraction while minimizing long-term maintenance costs. The bureaucratic language disguises mass murder as administrative efficiency. You watch Dr. Chong struggle with his role in this machinery. His scientific training wars with the knowledge that his research serves purely destructive purposes. He tells himself he's advancing medical understanding, but late at night, alone in his quarters, he stares at his hands and wonders what he's become. The woman from Pyongyang returns periodically to inspect operations, always seeking ways to improve efficiency, to process more prisoners with fewer resources, to perfect the balance between productivity and elimination. She represents the apex of institutional evil, cruelty elevated to the level of science, suffering transformed into policy. But your consciousness doesn't only witness horror. You also perceive moments of profound human dignity that persist despite everything. Prisoners sharing their meager rations with those weaker than themselves, protecting each other from guards' attention, whispering words of comfort in the darkness, maintaining their humanity against impossible odds. You see an elderly prisoner, barely alive, teaching younger inmates about the world outside, sharing memories of freedom, keeping alive the knowledge that life once held beauty and meaning. His voice is weak, his body failing, but his spirit burns with unquenchable fire, refusing to surrender to despair. Another prisoner, a woman whose children were taken when she was arrested, scratches their names into the concrete wall of her cell, creating a memorial that guards cannot erase, a testament to love that transcends physical separation. Her tears mix with stone dust as she works, but her hands remain steady. These moments of resistance, small as they seem, represent victory against the camp's true purpose, which is not merely to kill bodies, but to destroy souls, to prove that human dignity is an illusion, to demonstrate that anyone can be reduced to an animal given sufficient pressure. Every act of compassion defeats this goal. You begin to understand your role as eternal witness. You exist to remember what the administrators want forgotten, to preserve the stories they seek to erase, to maintain the record they attempt to destroy. Your consciousness has become an archive of truth that cannot be corrupted, cannot be revised, cannot be eliminated. Through the years, you watch thousands of prisoners enter these gates. Most never leave. Their bodies are burned, their names erased from records, their existence denied by official documents. But you remember each face, each story, each moment of suffering and dignity. Nothing is truly lost while you bear witness. The camp evolves over time. Methods become more refined, more efficient, more psychologically sophisticated. New techniques are developed for breaking prisoners faster, for extracting maximum labor before disposal, for maintaining the illusion that this is rehabilitation rather than extermination. But the essential purpose remains unchanged. You perceive the broader context, the network of similar facilities throughout the country, the millions of people who disappear into this system, the families who spend lifetimes searching for loved ones who will never return. The camps are just the visible tip of a vast apparatus designed to maintain control through terror. Political changes occur in the outside world. Leaders rise and fall. Policies shift and adapt. But the camps continue operating. They represent something deeper than any individual regime. They embody the logical conclusion of a system that views human beings as obstacles to be removed rather than individuals to be valued. You witness the corruption that permeates every level. Guards stealing food meant for prisoners. Administrators selling medical supplies while inmates die of treatable diseases. Officials reporting false statistics to make their performance appear successful. The system consumes everything it touches, turning even its servants into victims. But you also see resistance beyond the camp walls. Families who refuse to stop searching. Activists who document abuses despite personal danger. Foreign journalists who risk everything to expose the truth. Your consciousness reaches out to them, offering silent encouragement, wordless solidarity with all who oppose this machinery of destruction. Years pass, but time has no meaning for your transformed existence. You witness the same patterns repeating endlessly. New prisoners replacing the dead, fresh horror built on the foundation of previous atrocities. The eternal cycle of a system that feeds on human suffering. Yet something begins to change, slowly, almost imperceptibly. Information starts leaking beyond the camp's walls. Stories reach the outside world. Testimonies from escapees and defectors. Satellite photographs that reveal the truth. International pressure that cannot be completely ignored. You sense growing awareness in the global community. Organizations documenting abuses. Governments imposing sanctions. Citizens demanding action. The absolute secrecy that once protected these facilities begins to crack. Light starts penetrating the darkness you've witnessed for so long. The woman from Pyongyang becomes increasingly agitated as external scrutiny intensifies. She orders stricter security measures, more thorough destruction of evidence, faster processing of prisoners to eliminate potential witnesses. But the truth has momentum now, a life of its own that cannot be stopped. Dr. Chong receives new orders to prepare the facility for potential inspection, to create documentation that supports official narratives, to eliminate any evidence of unauthorized research. He spends sleepless nights destroying records, burning photographs, erasing the proof of his own complicity. But you remember everything. Every document destroyed, every photograph burned, every record eliminated, exists permanently in your consciousness. The administrators can erase their files, but they cannot erase you, cannot destroy the living testimony you've become. The camp population decreases rapidly as officials attempt to reduce evidence. Prisoners are transferred to other facilities or simply eliminated. The concrete buildings that once held thousands now echo with emptiness. But the suffering remains, absorbed into the very structure, part of the permanent record. You feel other presences joining yours, the consciousness of prisoners who died here, their awareness somehow preserved in this place of ultimate testimony. Together you form an invisible assembly, a parliament of the disappeared, voices that speak for those who can no longer speak for themselves. This collective consciousness grows stronger, more coherent, more purposeful. You are no longer alone in bearing witness. You are part of something larger, a community of memory that transcends death, a fellowship of truth that cannot be destroyed by any earthly power. And through this communion with the dead, you begin to perceive something unprecedented, a shift in the cosmic balance, a moment when accumulated suffering reaches critical mass, when the weight of witnessed atrocity becomes too heavy for the universe to bear, when truth demands manifestation. The very foundations of the camp begin to vibrate with invisible energy, as if the concrete itself is preparing to speak, to testify, to reveal everything it has absorbed over decades of horror. The moment of reckoning approaches, inevitable as gravity, unstoppable as time itself. The vibrations intensify until the concrete walls themselves begin to crack, not from structural failure, but from the accumulated weight of truth demanding release. Every scream absorbed into these stones, every tear soaked into this earth, every prayer whispered in darkness, rises to the surface like water breaking through a dam. The guards flee as the facility shudders with otherworldly energy. Their instruments cannot measure what's happening. Their training cannot explain the phenomenon, but their primitive instincts recognize the approach of something vast and terrible, something that renders their weapons useless, their authority meaningless. Dr. Chong stands paralyzed in his laboratory, watching as his carefully cataloged specimens begin to glow with inner light, as if the tortured flesh itself is bearing witness, rejecting the clinical detachment he used to justify his work. The dead are speaking, and their testimony burns away every excuse, every rationalization, every lie he told himself. The woman from Pyongyang attempts to maintain control. issuing orders that no one follows, demanding explanations that don't exist. But even she, with her heart of stone and mind of ice, feels the inexorable approach of judgment. The universe itself has become prosecutor, jury, and executioner. Your consciousness expands one final time, encompassing not just this camp, but every similar facility, every place where humans have created systems to destroy other humans. Your awareness becomes a bridge connecting all the disappeared, all the forgotten, all the denied, giving voice to the voiceless across space and time. And in that moment of ultimate expansion, you achieve what the camps were designed to prevent. You become proof that human dignity cannot be destroyed, that consciousness cannot be eliminated, that truth cannot be permanently buried, that love persists even in the darkest places. The concrete dissolves, the metal melts, the very atoms that formed this place of horror scatter to the winds, carrying with them the testimony you've preserved, the stories you've protected, the names you've remembered. Nothing remains but grass and flowers, and the eternal knowledge that this ground is sacred, hallowed by suffering, consecrated by witness. Your mission is complete. The disappeared have been remembered, the silenced have been heard, the forgotten have been honored, and somewhere, in the space between sleeping and waking, between memory and dream, your consciousness finally finds the rest it has earned, the peace that comes only to those who have borne unbearable witness and transformed darkness into light. The last sound is wind through grass, carrying whispers that might be voices, might be prayers, might be the eternal testimony of those who refused to let evil have the final word. And in that whisper, in that wind, in that grass, the truth lives on, indestructible, unforgettable, forever.